Okay. Did this actually work? I see my own face. It's either a good sign or a bad sign. Hi, everyone. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I was fighting with Google Chrome, which has a nice feature where every 30 seconds, if you want your microphone to work, every 30 seconds, you basically, 30 minutes, I guess you basically have to restart Chrome. Let's see. I'm going to invite Oliver on screen, and then we'll kick it off. We actually have a little doc I'm going to share with you. So let me get Oliver up here, so you're not just staring at my face the entire time. Let's see, what's the best way to post this document? Let me put it into the Slack channel first.
Hello, how's it going?
Hey, Oliver. Do you have the link to that doc we've been working on? Do you mind just posting that into like the chat? In my reboot of Chrome, I lost all my open tabs. Okay, thank you.
So thanks everyone for taking time out of your mornings or evenings or whatever it is to hang out with us.
Yeah, definitely, we appreciate it. So just a round of quick intros, and while we're talking, feel free to click on that lock and click on the doc and kind of still have the little overview. We're basically going to spend this entire time walking through that doc, and then we'll do some Q&A. My name is William Morgan. I'm the CEO of a little company called Buoyant. To my left or right is Oliver Gould, who's the CTO of Buoyant and actually does work on Linkerd. I'm just the beautiful face of Linkerd. And welcome to our first ever community meeting. It's the first time we've ever tried this. It's totally experimental. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to stop talking shortly, and Oliver's going to do the majority of this talking. But we have this doc that we put together that we posted in chat, and we're just going to walk through that. There's a brief little agenda over, and I'm going to try. I might try actually sharing my screen with that doc. If we overload the Office wireless, then I'll turn that off. But we're just going to go through kind of the roadmap overview. I want to call out some exciting and very nice, friendly people from the community who we think have done a particularly good job. And then there's a big Q&A section at the bottom. So while we're talking, if things come to mind, feel free to ask questions there and to vote them up. If you see other good questions at the end, Oliver and I will do some Q&A. And there's also a poll. If you are getting listening to us, just answer a couple of questions.
And if we don't get to the questions in the video, we can probably follow up after and answer some of them offline. So. Yeah,
that's right. And this whole thing is going to be recorded, and we'll put the whole recording online unless something terrible happens and we have to hide it from the public, in which case it'll disappear forever. Okay, so that said, Oliver, do you want to take it away with the Linkerd roadmap and upcoming releases? And while you do that, I'll try and do a screen share.
Excellent. So thanks again for taking time out of your day to talk about Linkerd. I'm happy that so many showed up, almost 100, wow. So we have a few releases. We release almost every 2 weeks, depending on what's in the pipe. We're trying to get a release out next week, but it may be the following week, depending on how our testing goes. And the real thrust right now is to remove the experimental flag from the H2 router. We have a number of people in production or going to production with that now. And so we're working with them to stabilize and test kind of some remaining things. In that vein, we've been doing a lot of work on doing stream-aware response classification. And what this specifically will unlock is the ability to use HTTP2 trailers to determine success rate and retries, which is necessary for full gRPC support. And so our goal is for 113 to enable full response classification for gRPC messages. Everything okay?
Yeah, you cut out for a second. I'm going to turn off screen share because I might be overloading our precious wireless.
Yeah, we have a bunch of people on the dock too, so that's great. Yeah, so there's been a bunch of work, mostly from Alex and Eliza on stabilizing this and testing that, and they're pretty close. We should be able to have everything back to master, I think, mid-early next week, and then we'll decide when to release after that. Additionally, we have some new Istio features, specifically the HTTP redirect stuff, which is important for ingress use cases especially. is going to make it into the next release. And we've added TLS for the admin site, which I know was a semi-popular request. So that should be there in 1.1.3. And probably about 2 weeks after that, or maybe 3 weeks, we'll have a 1.1.4 release. This is, again, a bunch more production readiness for H2. So we're going to move on to the pooled buffers, which should be quite a bit more efficient. Eliza's been working on a Kubernetes-backed interpreter, which I expect will have in 1.1.4, depending on how testing goes. That will enable you to run without Namerd and put resources directly in Kubernetes if you want to, and use that for DTAB distribution. Moving on to kind of the roadmap. So like I said, the big thrust right now, most of Alex's time at the moment is going into getting H2 ready for, or gRPC especially ready for production in some very large installations coming up. With that, we're doing a bunch of kind of performance analysis to make sure that it's actually production ready and that we know when we're making improvements and how we're improving things. And so that I'd expect is really over the next month. I'd hope that within the next 2 or 3 releases, we can remove that experimental flag is really the goal there. And that would also go for the potentially the mesh Namerd interface, potentially. Looking forward a little bit further, we have the client and service configs, which landed in, I think, 1.0. And we want to make those pluggable just like any other plugin interface. And so right now they're static. We have the global and static client and service configs. And we'll make those dynamic as well, which should, I think, satisfy a lot of the config reloading questions we get. Where if you want to change a timeout, you should be able to just do that by updating another file on disk, for instance, where we can pull it up. And this will also unlock a bunch of the Istio integrations that are coming up. So to do deeper policies, things like dynamic retry policies and dynamic timeout policies, all being provided by Istio, we'll need this to be a dynamic pluggable module. So I'd expect to see an Istio plugin in that space in the near future as well, in the medium future. Additionally, as I think a lot of people know, we've been doing a bunch of investment in Rust recently, and that's specifically around the Tokyo project. And we actually hired Carl Lersch from the Tokyo project to come work with us on this stuff, and it's been great having him. And the mission there is to build the safest, most efficient networking stack we can. And we're doing this with a number of other startups and large companies who also want to have a nice memory-safe networking implementation to build on. And so if you look at what companies are starting to look at Rust in production, that might be a good map of what companies we're starting to work with there. And so along those lines, we also released Linkerd TCP a few months ago. That's now, I think, quite usable, though we're not actively pouring a lot of features in that in the short term. If there are feature requests, please let us know. We'd love to find more use cases for it. But otherwise, our focus has been on focusing more on kind of H2 parity on the Rust side as well, which I think will unlock a bunch of nice auth and Istio integration stuff that we can do from the Rust side in a small sidecar. And along those lines, we're also starting to sponsor some work on the TLS implementations in Rust so that we can get away from things like OpenSSL and have a memory-safe, efficient TLS implementation. Really excited about all of that work. It's really promising. And in the longer term, I expect we have a lot of these kind of advanced features that we've talked about for a while, and we've been marching towards that. So things like dynamic client and service policies are going to be really helpful. And this will also, I think, dovetail nicely with Istio's feature set. So as we enable these things in Linkerd, this should fit nicely into Istio's roadmap of adding these features as well. Which brings me to the Istio update. So Istio is great. We love Istio. I have an Istio t-shirt. We've been spending a lot of time in their Slack. It's been a really great to have a bunch of other smart people in this space building things. We've been talking about this for years, so it's great to have more people playing and pushing the boundaries of what we can do. And so we've been really thinking about how to make Linkerd work well with Istio. We don't want this to be an all or nothing thing. So if you want to start experimenting with Istio in some clusters and you use Linkerd already, that shouldn't be a blocker for you. And so we're really focused on making that experience really good. And so what we have now is kind of a base implementation. We're focused on adding some of that policy stuff I was talking about. So adding dynamic policy will enable us to integrate more deeply with Istio. And then as we have that Rust sidecar, we'll be able to really satisfy a lot of the more advanced use cases with auth and policy control. So I would expect that all is going to happen pretty quickly, but there's a lot of dependencies there. So we'll do that over a few releases iteratively.
Am I still frozen, Oliver? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's really kind of noisy in your room, maybe. But, yeah.
Steven says that I'm still frozen.
Yeah. We're in the same office, so.
Says you can hear, but frozen. But I'm alive on Dominic's side. Okay, this is like crowdsourcing,
Alerts.
our wireless reception. Can't hear or see, says Steve Martin. Okay, I'm going to try something else. This is, I'm going to turn off my video and I'm just going to be a voice. And we'll see if that helps. All right. Welcome to the voice of William Morgan. So I just wanted to say a little bit about Istio because there have been a couple questions on the Q&A side. Fundamentally, Q&A, Linkerd for the back end might fix it. Yeah, okay. So fundamentally, Istio and Linkerd are two very compatible projects. Like Oliver said, there's a lot that we really like about Istio, and directionally it's very appropriate for the sorts of things that we want to be able to do, especially with larger scale Linkerd deployments. So we're going to be spending a lot of time and energy making that work well. Istio may or may not be suitable for you, and Linkerd will work without it, so it's not a requirement. But there are a set of use cases for which Istio is really awesome, and we have a very good relationship with the folks at Google and IBM, and the entire Istio community has been very friendly and helpful, and Sarah Brown has been leading the charge on that on our side. Unfortunately, she's not here to present because she's off relaxing. Otherwise, I would have her do a lot of the talking instead of me. But Istio is going to be, we think it's going to be a pretty big deal for a lot of companies, and so we're going to spend a bunch of time and energy on that. And it'll be good for Linkerd, even for folks who are not using Istio. It'll be very good for Linkerd. And if you're not familiar with the blog post, I have a little link to it in the doc, but we wrote a little blog post with some of the technical details about how that works. Effectively, what Istio provides is a set of very nice API layers on top of a Linkerd deployment, similar to how it provides one on top of an Envoy deployment. And in that world, you kind of get the best of both worlds. So you have Linkerd uniform across your entire stack, and then you have Istio layered on top, either for the Kubernetes specific bits or potentially in the future when they extend beyond Kubernetes more globally. Istio is pretty early right now. It's not quite ready for production, but it's moving very rapidly. So, anyways, I hope that answers some of the questions. This community meeting is sponsored by LaCroix, so we'd all like to take a moment to actually, it's the opposite. We're paying them a bunch of money. Yeah. I guess
Linkerd is powered by LaCroix.
Right. Okay, so going back to the doc, so that's kind of the Istio update. Why don't I'll run through these. I'll run through the community mentions. There's a couple people that we really wanted to shout out. Should I try turning on my camera again? I'm going to try it.
I don't need to see anymore, but maybe they do.
No, it's important. This is the most beautiful face that's associated with Linkerd.
Oh, you're really laggy. Wow, you're really laggy.
Am I laggy? All right, I'll turn it off. Okay, so community awards. There's a couple of folks, and this is definitely an incomplete list because there have been many contributors and participants to the Linkerd community over the past year, and the only ones that we remember are those from the past 30 days. So I apologize to everyone who's done anything prior to the past 30 days. But a couple folks we really wanted to give a shout out to. Kevin Holditch wrote a great ECS blog post, and I meant to put the link in there. If someone finds this post and pastes it into the chat, I'll update the doc. Dario Simonetti wrote another great ECS blog post. So we've had a lot of ECS activity. If you're on ECS and using Linkerd, that's and Don, I know that you're on the community meeting too. That's an awesome use case for us. We have a dialogue going on with Amazon right now about making that integration even tighter. And we have a blog post of our own coming up soon with kind of compiling a bunch of the lessons that we've learned through folks like Kevin and Dario and Don. So look for that, and definitely if you are interested in better ECS and Linkerd support and you haven't talked to us already, please talk to us. Dmitro Kostyachenko, I hope I pronounced that right, a very nice person who has helped us track down I put crazy thrift issue. It's mildly crazy.
It's pathological. I would say it's pathological.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll say cool instead of crazy. Cool. And Boris Kirov, of course, one of our most favorite people who has been involved with Linkerd since the very early days when we were little more than a glimmer in the eye of a production server. Helped us fix a minor build issue recently. He is also giving a Linkerd talk at HashiConf, so if you're going to be at HashiConf, definitely sign up for that. And I love the fact that people are giving talks about Linkerd. That's really, really good for the project.
Yeah, and to echo that, Boris has done a lot of the console integration. So if you use console, you owe Boris a beer. He's done some really good work there. That's
right. And he'll be posting in his mailing address, so you can mail him a beer later on in the Slack. Alexander Bereziansky has also been an incredibly helpful person on Slack. I remember being very impressed by his willingness to hop in and help people, which is nice for us. He also gave a great talk at JEE Conf on Linkerd. And you can send him your accolades on Slack. Michael Twetton, I believe, helped us add TLF support to the marathon namer for the DCOS strict mode. Ravi Pool, oops, sorry, I think I missed an E in your name here, has contributed a patch to our gRPC stress tester, and Richard Marshall has contributed a patch to Slow Cooker, which is our load generator. So this is an incomplete list. Thank you to all these folks here. If you're interested in a t-shirt or a sticker, please feel free to DM me or Oliver on the Linkerd Slack and we'll hook you up.
Or Linkerd, yeah.
That's right. And if there's anyone else that comes to mind, please suggest them in the chat and I will add them to this list. This document will be a living document.
And if you make a lot of changes, you might even get a hoodie. So
the bar for a hoodie is pretty high.
But it's out there.
Yeah, that's right. It's possible. It's possible to attain them, right? Okay, and then the last bit before we do some Q&A is this section called Get Involved. So we love it. We absolutely love it when people get involved with the Linkerd community, and there's many, many ways to do that, not just contributing pull requests, which of course is awesome for us, but helping people out of Slack and on the discourse forums is really, really nice because it builds a sense of community, and also it means that we don't have to be in there 100% of the time. So I love it when people do that. And then the other thing that is some kind of a higher effort bar, but which is really valuable for us, is talks and blog posts. I pointed out in here in the doc, we're especially looking for talks to KubeCon/Cloud Native Con, which is happening this December in Austin, Texas. This is a very exciting conference for us because this is kind of the cloud native community where Linkerd really belongs. And we're happy to help you with content and slides and submissions. You need to provide the use case, right? It has to be like something interesting on your side, but we're really happy to help you out because it's good for us and it's good for the community. So,
and I'm happy to share talks if you want to do meetups together or anything like that. Feel free to reach out. Just say hi.
Yeah. And for an open source project like Linkerd, this is one of the most powerful things you can do because it really helps spread the message beyond just the people like Boyne who are paid to like Linkerd. It's really helpful to have the rest of the world kind of engage in it in that level. And there's a couple suggested Linkerd topics here. Obviously, any production use case is awesome. Any kind of way that you're gluing this with other CNCF projects. So one of the nice things about Linkerd is it integrates with so many things. So Prometheus and Kubernetes, Zipkin, Fluentd, gRPC. I think Zipkin might not be an official CNCF project, but it's pretty close. Any of those things are worth talking about. Anyone who's doing security stuff, especially cross-service TLS, or you're doing cert management in some interesting way, that's a great use case for us, and we're very interested in that. Anyone who's using Linkerd to kind of bridge the world of Kubernetes and non-Kubernetes, or ECS and non-ECS, one of the really powerful features of Linkerd is that you can talk to multiple service discovery mechanisms and have it chain them in a specific way. So it can really act as this bridge mechanism. That's a great use case. If you're using it with Istio, I definitely want to hear from you, because that's really exciting for us. And a couple other cool things. Basically, if you're using Linkerd, we'll help you out. We would love to get you talking about it. And this is all, I guess before we get to Q&A, I'll just say, we are 100% committed. I know Buoyant is a company and we're a startup, but we're 100% committed to Linkerd being a thriving and viable open source product or project without us having to do 100% of the work. We really want this project to live by itself. And we're not interested in ever holding back features or holding back things that are kind of the core functionality of Linkerd. So we want this to be, and we're highly invested in making this a first-class open source project with a first-class open source community behind it. That's really important to us.
And so if there's anything we can do to make it easier to work with us, or if you want to get involved and you don't know where to start, feel free to just reach out to us in Slack. We're happy to help guide you through that.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, let's see. Any last comments from the chat room before we go to Q&A time? I'm just reading through here. Everyone likes Linkerd. Okay, that's good. You got hoodies. Okay. Are the shirts and hoodies fairly traded? That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that, Dominic. That's a very good question.
I think they are. I know the ones from CNCF are, and I believe ours as well.
I think the T-shirts are. I'm not sure about the hoodies. We'll investigate it. That's a really good question. All right, should we do some Q&A? We are at 26 minutes past the hour, so this is good. We are, I think, probably going to be able to give you back some of your time. And what I'm going to do is, for the lucky folks who have asked questions and who we chose to answer, I'm actually going to, should I do this? Should I invite them on screen? We have the ability to actually bring their face live. Nicholas, Marshall Don, are you ready? You want to do this? You have the top ranked question. I don't know. Should we try it?
I don't know. This is a weird idea, but if you want to do it, go for it.
I'm going to try it with Nicholas because I know that he is nice. Let's see what happens. It just invites him. It sends an invitation. So if you want to decline it, please feel free to decline it. Otherwise, we're going to bring your face right up here. This is really interesting. We've never tried this before, so this is, when I see a button, I feel compelled to click it. That's kind of what this boils down to. That's the doorbell. This is a problem with doing this in your office. Adds a little authenticity to the experience.
Problem with our office.
Yeah, we are actual human beings. This is just a good. There he is.
Hello.
Hi, Nicholas. So your question, which was a top-ranked question, was how would you position yourselves with regards to Envoy and Istio? So I kind of talked about Istio a little bit. I'll just reiterate that, and I'll talk about Envoy, and then I'm interested in your reaction to this. So Istio, great project. We're highly invested in making Linkerd and Istio work really, really well together. There's a bunch of stuff on the roadmap for us. Envoy is a great project. We like it a lot. We know the Envoy author very well. He actually was a colleague of ours at Twitter. We've had a bunch of conversations with him, and it's a great piece of tech. We're not going to do anything with it, but it's not. It's not a fight either. I think they both Linkerd and Envoy have a distinct set of use cases.
I can talk to this a little bit more.
Sure.
So we started Linkerd at least a year before Envoy was an idea, right, or something that was public that we knew was a thing. And our goal has really been to focus on features and correctness, and that's why we chose Scala at Twitter to start, was because we were focused on the features and the correctness that we could get there and be more efficient. And that hasn't changed, but the reality is that now there's a lower resource footprint alternative to Linkerd, which is unfortunate, right? Like I do think we don't want to sacrifice on correctness, especially, and safety especially. And so this is why we've started to look at Rust more seriously, because I am quite concerned around having, for instance, like memory leaks at this part of the stack. or to the place where we could actually have safety issues, right? Things like heartbleed being at this layer of the stack. So that's the nice thing about the JVM, is that you can avoid a huge class of safety issues, but at the cost of resource management. And so we're trying to solve the resource management problem independently. So it's kind of just different. Our focuses are slightly different. I think Envoy is a great piece of tech. I'm sure it's going to have a thriving future, and it is going to be integrated with Istio much in the same way that Linkerd will be integrated with Istio over time. So I think they're different projects, they're different communities, and different trade-offs will lead to different using these in different places. I see there being a world where like Envoy and Linkerd are running in the same site. There's no reason that couldn't be the case, because different deployment models will have different needs and feature sets.
Nicholas, what do you think?
I'm invested in Linkerd right now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And I haven't seen Istio approaching, and it's not really on our radar right now because it supports only Linkerd Kubernetes deployments, and we're not looking into that right now. And I would just so I didn't investigate much into what Istio provides on top of Linkerd. So
what you get right now, we have Namerd for managing routes. And Istio similarly has a route management API as well as a number of other APIs, which we were actually planning on adding into Namerd. But as we see Istio come out, it might be more of that API control layer that we want to invest in long term, rather than having two API control layers.
That's the famous service mesh API in Namerd.
Yeah, exactly.
Famous, right? Yeah.
Well, keep hearing about it.
Yeah.
Good.
It's all vaporware as far as I know right now.
Oh, it's there. It's just experimental. Some people here are using it though in production. So.
Well, thanks guys for answering my question.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you very much. All right. Let's see. For the very next, Oliver, what do you think about this inviting people on screen? I kind of like it because it's less you and me, but it might be a little scary.
I would be scared if you invited me on TV. But.
Okay, so the very next question, Oliver, this is definitely one for you from Don Laidlaw. For monitoring, you want me to ask it and you answer it?
Sure.
For monitoring our services' health and performance, which of the hundreds of metrics published by Linkerd are the best and most useful? I'm hoping for someone with experience to share, perhaps even find documentation on what the best metrics are and what they mean. Nobody will monitor all the metrics. Which are the commonly useful ones?
And Don, if you want to come up, just raise your hand and chat, and we'll bring you in. But this is a great question, and probably worth its own blog post or at least discourse page. I think we do have a discourse page around going to production, which would be a great home for this. And so there's a few concerns when monitoring, right? One is you want to monitor Linkerd health in itself, the health of the process Linkerd. And to do that, you probably want to look at some of the JVM metrics. Specifically, you want to look at GC MSECs and GC cycles will tell you, and will tell you basically allocation rates and how frequently you're garbage collecting, which should be pretty, you want it to be constant and low rather than infrequent and big. And then there's a bunch of things more in terms of like, how do you monitor the service health themselves and the load balancers health themselves? And so to start, there's generally some success rate metric that you use, and you look at success counts and failure counts to calculate that, which will give you the number of total things. And then a lot of the other metrics come in more when debugging of like, why is this getting a failure accrual? Or why am I not sending requests to this node or to this cluster? And then when you look at load balancer stats and failure accrual stats, those will answer a lot of those questions. So I think there was a response here looking at the Linkerd Viz dashboard that we provide as a good starting place, and that will give you very top-level service health metrics. For getting kind of more detailed Linkerd health metrics, we probably should add a dashboard into Linkerd Viz for that. That'd be great. So. Not a 100% answer. I would like to collaborate more on this around discourse so we can get a kind of a menu of things that people are actually monitoring in production. I'm sure there are people monitoring with Prometheus in production and various other systems. So it'd be good to get a little bit of a library of monitoring snippets and different ways people monitor this in production. But I can help guide on some of those details as we go too. And William might be lost. And if we lost William, I will keep talking.
No, it's me. I just was accidentally muted. All right. And Don says, thanks for the answer in the chat. All right. Thank you for a very good question, Don. All right. Very next question. This is from Dominic, and he says in the comments, we've basically answered this with Nicholas already. What are your plans behind integrating with Istio?
Well, the first step is wearing their T-shirt, and then
Yes.
after that, everything.
Right. Step 1, wear T-shirt. ... Step 3, profit. Okay, we have a question from R. Ben that says, what is the value add of Linkerd compared to Nginx and Trafic for ingress traffic?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I mean, I think. Okay, so for one, Linkerd. For one, Linkerd has a bunch of features around ad hoc staging and things like that, which can be really useful in the ingress case. So, for instance, if you want to support multiple front ends and you want to be able to just cherry pick those with a header or something like that, Linkerd supports that out of the box. I mean, there are good reasons to use Nginx as well. Nginx has a lot of HTTP, CSS, JavaScript-focused features that are really good at fronting websites. And Linkerd's goal is not to front websites in the same way. Linkerd's goal is to connect services. So we typically see a lot of, we'll see Nginx and Linkerd used together in a number of deployments so that we can have this, or they can have this, all the caching and CSS, minification, all that stuff managed by Nginx, and then use Linkerd to connect that into the service graph that's calling it. As far as Trafic goes, I haven't looked at it in great detail. My perception of it, which might be wrong, is that it has kind of a big dependency graph. You got to pull in a bunch of things, but I'm sure it's a fine project. I haven't spent a lot of time with it personally.
All right, so R. Ben, thank you for that question. Feel free to ping us in the chat if you want to dive in a little deeper. And let's see, I'm going to go through, the rest of the questions have just a small number of votes, so I'm just going to kind of pick and choose from some of these. Let's see, Stephen Dahl asks, will there be, at some point, an interface to help with the configuration of config files or config file linters?
I mean, it's a great idea. We've kind of thought about this before, and some of these features have made it into the admin page. So when you see the dtab playground there, for instance, it's that. Oh, nice drink you have there. Once we've started to make some steps to that, but haven't really gone as far as I'd like to. So if you have things or ideas around how that would work and things you'd want to lint, that'd be really good. I'd love some help working on that because I haven't thought about it too much, but I think we could use that. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you we're going to do it by a certain time, but I would love to see the community help build that with us. So maybe a starting place there is to create an issue in the Linkerd project, and then somebody can jump on it if they want to chip in.
And Michael P. has a comment which says, has anyone generated a Linkerd config with JSON? That would be...
I've done it with Bash.
You've done it with Bash?
Yeah. Yeah, I bet that'd be cool.
And Mason Jones
anyone
says,
write the blog post, please do.
Yeah, that would be cool. Mason says he hasn't used JSON, but they're using Helm to deploy Linkerd and Namerd. So if anyone is interested in Helm, feel free to ping Mason. Okay, there's a very similar question from Mason which says, do we have plans to make it easier to dynamically update Linkerd configs without a restart?
Yeah.
Similarly, plans to simplify Namerd DTAB updates via API, so it doesn't require a whole wholesale update of everything?
Yeah, so on both of those things, okay, so on one, we definitely plan on making the configs finer grained so that the smaller parts can be updated independently. We're probably not going to make routers themselves dynamically loadable, so that you, in the near term future, we could consider that potentially, but it's quite a bit more complicated. But at least to reload client configs dynamically is something that we'll be able to do in the short term. I expect the next 2 releases or so. The second question there was, let me remind myself.
Simplify named DTAB updates.
Okay, and the named API. Yeah, I would love more insight around what that API would ideally look like to people. We've had a number of branches to explore this, and none of these APIs we thought were like something we really confidently wanted to move forward with. So this is something we would be really open for input and collaboration on what that API might look like. And yeah,
this is like
we made
hierarchical DTAB thing.
Yeah, we had a bunch of
composable DTABs.
Yeah, we've thought about making this much more powerful and complex and detailed, but
if DTABs are too simple for you right now, we can add a whole new layer of complexity to them.
So we have a bunch of ideas, but we're looking for more concrete use cases to drive that. So happy to talk more through that.
Okay, good. And Boris has a comment on that issue. He says we had to develop a custom DTAB store to get that functionality, but it was fairly easy to do.
And that's in console, so we might be able to leverage some of that same stuff with your deployment.
Yeah, so that would be really interesting. Thank you, Mason. Thanks, Boris. Let's see. Just going through. So there's another interesting question here. I'm going to upvote it. And, okay, so Michael P asks.
Oh, not that guy.
Oliver, you hinted at some. I'm editorializing the question. Oliver, listen. You hinted at some developments regarding sidecar deployment models at tweet 885171128, etc. Keen to get your thoughts on one per host / daemon set versus per pod sidecar and the security implications. Ooh, this is a good question. Secrets, spiffy, etc.
Yeah. So I think, that's a totally valid question. Right now, Linkerd isn't really in a place to enforce the same amount of policy that it would be. If you use Linkerd in a daemon set deployment model or one per node, and you have multiple tenants on that node, Linkerd is not in a place to provide the credentials for those applications because it's not in the same user space as those things. And so the solution here is to move into a pure sidecar, like into a pod, for instance, where Linkerd is running there. And some people are running Linkerd in pods in production, but that adds significant memory overhead, which was not available to everyone. And so our solution here is to have a thinner, at least for certain applications. So in the short term, I think we'll be targeting gRPC applications and adding HTTP later. Will be to have a small Rust proxy, which isn't doing anything complicated in terms of load balancing or retries or timeouts or any of that stuff, but is only bootstrapping the credentials onto an HTTP2 connection to a Linkerd. And then Linkerd will handle all of the complex logic that it handles today. And so that'll be, I think, our incremental approach there. And that's what we're marching towards on the Rust side, is that thin auth proxy. So our approach here is to be very incremental. We want to satisfy these use cases and enable this finer grained policy control, but we don't want to set out on a mission to boil the ocean. And so we don't want to tear Linkerd apart to do that. We're going to build on this piece by piece.
All right, Michael, if that does not answer your question, feel free to tell us so in chat. Dominic has a related comment, which says, if Linkerd is deployed as a daemon set, how about latency with many services running on a single node?
So actually, Linkerd, I mean, depending on your call graph, but Linkerd can be quite a bit more efficient with the higher concentration is there. Specifically because load balancers have better information when they're processing more requests to a given cluster endpoint. And so I don't think that there's a obvious problem with that. We'd want to make sure that Linkerd has enough resources, CPU and memory-wise, to accommodate the number of clients it's dealing with. And you always want to tune or make sure that you're at least checking your client caches in Linkerd. There's 4 caches that need to be set. I think the default is 1,000 clients, so that's generally pretty good. If you need more than 1,000 clients, then you want to bump that number up and probably give it some more memory. And a client here, again, is a target cluster, so like a name and service discovery. So yeah, I don't think there's any obvious problem there, but it always takes a little tuning and testing to get this stuff exactly right.
And Mason adds another comment which says he's been running 1 Linkerd per host for a little while now with pretty heavy load, and it has been fine so far.
That's what I want to hear.
That's the bar that we strive for. All right, thank you, Michael P., Dominic, and Mason. All right, let's just do one last question here, and then we'll wrap it up, and we'll give people a little bit of their day back. So I think the last question we should answer is, Christian has a question. Will Linkerd load balancing replace GSLB, F5, etc.? Okay.
So Linkerd will not replace GSLB. Global scale load balancing has to be done way out on the edge, usually via DNS. And we have, we can integrate with those things, but we do not do that sort of GSLB is a hard problem and a big problem, and Linkerd does not solve it. The other part of this question is that F5 and things like that is Linkerd can absolutely be used to replace something like an F5 or a hardware load balancer in your ecosystem. In prior life working at Yahoo, I managed a lot of hardware load balancers. We went to Twitter and did what we did. We really didn't use them. There were a couple at the company. And so it's all replaced by the stuff that Linkerd does.
Okay. And Boris has a comment. We saw a reduced number of errors in the case of service failure when using Linkerd compared to F5.
Yeah, if you want to ask Boris more questions he has all the answers.
Maybe we should invite Boris up here. Okay, so I think that's it for questions. There are a couple remaining, but I think we've covered kind of the most interesting one. So we'll start to wrap things up. I would like to encourage you to quickly click on the polls tab. There's a poll there, and we asked you some interesting questions. So we'd love to get your answers from that before we wrap things up, because that kind of data is really interesting to us. One of the weird things about running an open source project is that you don't actually know at any point in time who's using it until you tell us. And unfortunately, like, adoption is kind of our key metric right now. So we have to ask you for a favor, which is please tell us. Please tell us what you're doing with Linkerd and tell us when you're using it in production, because that's really valuable information for us. And similarly, tell us your feature requests, tell us what you need, tell us your problems. You know, this is a community effort, and it is an open source project, which means we want to be as collaborative as possible. And like I said earlier, we're really committed to making this a first-class project and a first-class community around it.
And to that end, if there's anything we can do to make it easier for you to contribute, or if you're just looking for a place to start, happy to help you get involved.
Yeah, that's right. And you can find us on the discourse channels. You can find us on the Slack. You can find us on GitHub. We're here. A big part of our job is not just making Linkerd, but making it useful to you. And join us. Yeah. Be part of Team Linkerd. Get the cool shirt. All right, any last things from your side, Oliver?
No, again, really appreciate everyone taking 50 minutes out of their day to come hang out with us and nerd out. We'll definitely do this again if the feedback's good. If you don't want to do this again, it's fine too.
Yeah, give us feedback on this event too. Like, how often should we do this? I'm thinking every 2 months, because I think more than that would probably be a little crazy. But if there's things we can do better or worse, don't invite people. Stop, put more faces up here, or a different forum.
And I want to reiterate, I'd love to see you all at Cloud Native Con in Austin in December. We'll probably be at some other conferences over the year, but that'll be a really exciting one for Linkerd, and we'll be there in a big way. And
we'll be there with bells on.
We'd love you to come talk or participate in any way.
That's right. And if you are ever in San Francisco, feel free to ping us. We'll show you the office where the magic is made, and maybe we'll even give you a T-shirt while you're here. That's my one incentive for anything.
And
we have a
LaCroix.
lot of T-shirts. I have here.
LaCroix.
And exactly one LaCroix. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
It was great to have such a good reception for our very first time doing this, and we'll talk to you later.